Hi all, welcome to the channel, welcome to the workshop. So today we have the next 6 issues of the 66 Batmobile, and today we are going to be working on more of the front section of the car, including putting on the 2 front wheels. If you do want to get this for yourself, there will be links in the description, so go check those out. But let's get into it, let's get building. Right, so as you can see, I've pulled up the main chassis that we're working on currently. I've also pulled out the wheel we had early on in this build. And as you can see, today we also got another one of our free gifts. So we've got the license plate for the Batmobile. And that is looking just like that. It's all metal. And it's pressed as they normally are. Looking pretty good. So that'll go up on the wall. I'm going to kick off this build pack with issue 21. And as per usual, I'll give you a flick through the magazines. Every stage does come with a magazine, and they are really well detailed. And as you can see, we've got these parts here. We built up one side last time, so we're going to be building up the other side this time around. And it's pretty much the same as what we've done at the end of the last build, where we're building up this turn knuckle here. Right, so these are the parts we actually have today. And as you can see, we've got plenty of screws just in this first pack. And we're going to start off with these 2 pieces. And also this piece. Now, just double checking, make sure you get these the correct way around because they are very slightly different. And the larger one, so you can just see there, we've got one that's slightly larger, one that's slightly narrower. Larger one is going on the bottom there, and the narrower one is going on the top, just there. We're going to secure both of those in place with 2 of the WM screws, and that's these longer screws. Now it is all metal, so I do have my little pot of oil to hand, just to dip the threads in. And that will just help cut through the metal and the paint that's on these parts. I think I might switch to my PH1 screwdriver bit, just to ensure get good purchase on these and get it screwed in. Now I'm not doing these really tight because they do move. It's all part of the suspension system, so you don't want to tighten them fully. And this top one just in here. That's looking just like that. Next we're going to get this piece and this piece. We've only got one side that's got holes in, and these sides blanked off. So we're just going to place that into those little recesses there, like so. And we're going to use 2 of the CM screws to hold that in place. Again, a lot of metal work here, I think, so I'm going to use a lot of oil today. Well, I say a lot of oil, but not really. Just dip the end of the screw in. So we've got that piece looking like that. I'll keep that piece to hand because we now need to put this piece on like so. And we're going to use the EM screws on either side of that to secure that. And again, these are screws that you don't want too tight as well, because you do want some movement in this. So I'm just going to start off by doing that one loosely to allow us to line this one up no problem. And once I'm satisfied, I'll just do them up the rest of the way. And when I'm not looking to pinch that, so it's just a case of put it in and then probably just back it out like a quarter of a turn, if that, just so you got some movement there. Right, now turning our attention to the chassis, and we need this long piece, and we also need our spring. Now, as we did before, the spring needs to go in here, and it's got a cup on the bottom here, and there is also a cup just up the top. So you do want to get this in place, just like that. Now, once it's in place, you just push that up a little bit. Just make sure that spring is seated in that top cup. Just like so. And then once that's in, we're going to take this piece and we're going to pop it through the middle there. Now we need to compress this and use one of the AIM screws to secure it in place up there. Just use a pair of tweezers just to get that lined up, and then you can compress it enough that it just pops up through there. Then we need one of these flanged AIM screws. Tighten that all the way in like that, and then I'm going to flip that over. Again, just being careful of anything on the top of the engine there. Might be better on its side. We're going to use 2 AM screws to secure that bit at the bottom there. So one just in there. And one just in there. Again, I am securing the chassis on this, so I'm not pushing down on that engine. So we now have that in there like so. Then need to take this piece, and that's going to sit in there like so. Now, the instructions do say to put the AIM screw in now, but last time what I did, I actually put this piece in first, so that we've got some wiggle room and movement on this. So I'm going to put this piece in first. Like so. You're going to use 2 CM screws there. Now, there is a reason I do it this way. If you put that in there, the correct way up, there is a little bit of wiggle to it. So you quite easily could put the screw in at an odd angle. Whereas if you have this piece on top, that is not going to move out of line anywhere. And both parts are going to line up properly. And it allows you to put the AIM screws in top and bottom at this stage. So one going in the top here. And you can see how easily that moved, but it hasn't popped out the other side. It just gives you that little bit of resistance against it moving. So I'm just going to put the last one in here. Again, don't want to do these too tight because this is your steering. And if you have this too tight, you won't be able to move the wheels at all. Not that I'm planning on driving around the kitchen table or anything, but it would be good to have the steering still functioning. And as you can see, they move nice and freely. And that is all there is to do in that stage. Right, so moving on to issue 22. And we're building the steering mechanism. And obviously we are doing a little bit of something to the wheel. It looks like we're fitting brake drum. And it looks like we might actually be fitting the wheel to the chassis this time around as well. So I'm going to start off with these pieces. And they are, as you can hear, all metal. Now it's worth noting that these do have letters marking on which side they go. So we've got an L and an R there. Hopefully the camera can pick that up just about. Now this seems symmetrical at the minute, so it shouldn't make much difference. Now we also have these parts, and again they are marked left and right. And it's a case of assemble all these into a steering mechanism. So we're going to start off with these two pieces. And they're just going to go through the holes like that. Now it does feel a little bit tight in there. And that'll just be down to a little bit of too much paint. So I'm just going to use my file just to take off a bit of that paint in there. And as you can see, we've now got a little bit more free movement. Now this is obviously all part of the steering mechanism. So the other thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to get a bit of oil. I'm just going to put that in there as well. So it's now a lot freer to move around. Now that one's much better, but I am still going to put a little dab of oil in there as well, like so. We're going to use 2 screws to put those in. Right, I do have a problem with this part. This hole is far too small to take a screw. So I'm just going to take my file and see if I can open it up a little bit. It might just be that there's too much paint there. Because it does look like it does go most of the way through. But I'll see if I can get that sorted. Need a little bit more oil to see if I can get that to really drive in there. There we go. So that's now going in there properly. Get that one secured in. Again, not doing these tight because we do want that movement. So with those like that, we've got the right on this side, the left on this side. We're going to match up the left and right pieces like so. And that's just going to go into that hole like that. And that one's going in there just like that. And we're going to use 2 screws to secure that in place. Nope, we're not going to use screws. We're going to use AIM screws. And you'll see why I've made that mistake. I've looked at the picture, which does say AM screws. The instructions say AIM screws. So use AIM screws. Don't always rely on the picture, it would seem. Did wonder why that went through and then just fell out again. So we've now got that looking just like so, making sure that our right and lefts are all matching up. Right, so I have just brought up my new Partwork Upgrades mat with my logo on it. Thank you very much, Ian, for that one. And the reason I've done that is because we are working on the underside of the car and trying to protect the top of the engine. And we've got our steering mechanism, obviously making sure that we're matching up our left and our right. Now, obviously it is reversed, so we've got the right hand side on this side, left hand side on this side. So kind of line up on these two pegs here and on this one here. Now this side doesn't have anything to locate on yet, but I'm guessing that's going to be down to the steering mechanism that will be there eventually. We're going to use two AIM screws here and a CM screw here. And then CM screw just going in there. Again, I'm not tightening these a lot, just so that we've still got that level of movement, like so. And we're going to grab our wheel, and we're going to take this piece, and we'll just line up those two lugs, like so. I'm going to use two AM screws for that. One in there. And the other just going in there. Make sure both of those are tight. So that's our drum in, like so. I need to take the back of our drum, and this is for the left side. So if I just flip the car around like this, we have two locating lugs on here, and with the detail at the bottom, we're just going to push that onto there. You do need to use a bit of force to get that on. It's quite a tight fit on there, but that's in there like so. Don't need to secure it. Oh, I have actually just realised on the back of this one, I'm not going to pull that off because I might break it. There's a little lug on the back there. Hopefully you can just about see that. Which we should have put this pipe on first. Well, that might come off actually. There we go. So push that pipe on like so. And then we need to put this on here. Like so. And then we need to put our wheel on. So we need to get our little plastic washer that we've got here. We need to use one of the FM screws. Again, just going to put a bit of oil on the end of that. Put our washer through like so. Going to mount our wheel onto that peg and then screw this in. Now, I'm not going to tighten it too much because we still obviously want this wheel to spin like so. But we don't want the wheel to wobble. There we go. And then the final thing to do for this stage is to push this Batman logo into the center of the wheel. Looking just like that. Looks great. And that is all there's to do in that stage. Right, I'm going to group just the next three issues together because ultimately the next three issues are just pretty much wheel and getting the wheel attached to the chassis. Really didn't need to be split up over 3 issues, but I guess they need to make enough for the magazines. So I'm going to start off with issue 23. And I will do the flick through the magazine for all of these first. So as you can see, we've just got those two pieces to put together. And then that's it. Not even screwing that. So that'll take 2 seconds. And then moving on to 24, you can see that we've got the tyre and the other part of the wheel. So that's where we are actually assembling the wheel, and we are screwing that together. And then when it comes to issue 25, we have the bits that will look familiar from the last bit we just done, which is the brake drum and the brake hose. So again, we're doing the brake hose, fitting that to the car, fitting it to the back of the wheel, fitting the wheel, and then putting the cap on like so. So that's the next 3 issues. Right, so we've got these 2 pieces for issue 23. And as we did previously for the first wheel we got, that goes on there like so. And that is all there's to do in issue 23. So we will move on to issue 24, which is where we actually get to assemble the wheel. So to do that, I'm going to take this assembly and place that inside like so. And then this rear ring is going to go and line up with the rest of that like so. And then we're using the CP screws to hold that in place. And it is worth noting not to over tighten these, because otherwise you will just strip out the plastic and you won't get it holding together. Right, so we've got those 5 screws in, and that's all there is to do in issue 24. So we're going to move on to 25. And you can certainly see why I grouped all of these together, because that would obviously only taken a couple of minutes to do. Right, so moving on to 25, as I said, and with this one we're going to start off with the rear or the brake drum and tangle that cable, and that's going to go onto the peg on the back of the drum like so. And again, with that detail at the bottom, we're going to place that on here, making sure not to trap our cable there. Again, another tight fit on there, but it does hold on nicely. Make sure that is pressed all the way in, like so. And then turning our attention to the back of this wheel, we'll just tighten those screws up a little bit more because it does seem a little bit loose. It's one of those things that it can be quite easy to over tighten these. Right, so as you can see, that's not loose in there now. You just want to make sure that that metal section isn't loose in the back of that wheel. Right, so we're going to place that over those 2 lugs like we did before. And then we're going to use 2 of the AM screws for that. Now I've actually still got 2 AM screws from earlier in the stage, earlier in the pack. So I'm going to use those. So in there, just like so. And then we're going to put the wheel onto the car, again using an FM screw, and we had a spare one from earlier. So again, just going to put that on there over that peg and secure it in like so. And again, not so tight that it doesn't spin, but not so loose that it's wobbly. And then finally we have the cap. And that's going to push into there like so. And then the Bat logo is just going to sit on top of there like that. And that is all to do in that stage. Right, and we're finishing off this build pack with issue 26. And as you see, we've got a bit more on the chassis. Now, these are two large chunks of metal. And as you can see, we're joining those together and we're extending the chassis. And then we have that at the end of it. So these are the two parts of the chassis. And we're just going to link those together like so. And we're going to use 2 CM screws to hold that in place. Now, see, this is part of the main chassis, so you do want it to be tight. Because we're going to put a lot of weight on this, I'm sure. So that's looking just like that. Right, so with the car this way around, we've got the left chassis rail. It is actually marked L, I've just noticed. So that's just going to go there and there, like so. And we're going to use 2 CM screws to hold that in place. So one in there. And one just in there. Now, I know we've just added effectively a piece of metal, but that has really given you the length of the car. And I think that's only just fitting on the top camera, as you can see. But that is certainly impressive. Yeah, I probably didn't give it credit, actually, how long this car was. Now, I didn't build the Ecto. I know that was a long car. But this is probably the longest car I've certainly built on the channel. And I'm sure that's probably not the end of it. That's probably going to extend off a little bit, and I'm sure that's going to extend off a little bit more as well. But that's a very long car. So that is all there is to do in that stage, and all there is to do in that build pack. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please remember to give him a big thumbs up. Now, if you want to get this for yourself, there are links in the description below, as I said. But check this out. It is mammoth. It's an absolute monster, and it's already weighing quite a bit. I mean, we've got that nice big chunk of metal on there, but yeah, that's the scale. It's right down there, and I think that's about where my head is. So, absolutely mammoth car. As I said, it's probably the biggest one I've got on the channel, and probably the biggest one that I own. So that is going to be one phenomenal car. No idea where it's going to go. And I think it's even too big now to fit in my cupboard. So I now need somewhere else to store it whilst it's in build. But I will solve all those problems at some point. If you want to see more how this progresses or anything else that goes on in the channel, please do remember to hit the subscribe button and ding that bell, and then you'll be notified when I release new videos. Until the next time, I'll see you around. Cheers!